Wonder of the Wasteland, Chapter 11, Part 1. When Adam recovered consciousness, he imagined he was in a dream. But a dragging, throbbing pain in his face seemed actuality enough to discredit any illusions of slumber. It was shady where he lay, or else his eyes were dimmed. Presently he made out that he reclined under one of the palm-thatched roofs. "I've been moved," he cried with a start. And that start so full of pain and queer dragging sensations as of a weighted body brought back memory to him. His mind whirled and darkened. The sickening horror of close proximity to the rattlesnake, its smell and color and deadly intent all possessed Adam again. Then it cleared away. What had happened to him? His hand seemed to have no feeling. Just barely could he move it to his face, where the touch of wet cloth bandages told a story of his rescue by someone. Probably the Indians had returned. It had been the whistle of a horse that had thrilled him. "I've been saved," whispered Adam. And he grew dizzy. His eyes closed. Dim shapes seemed to float over the surface of his mind. And there were other strange answerings of his being to this singular deliverance. Then he heard voices, some low and others deep and guttural, voices of Indians. How strong the spirit of life in him. I wasn't ready to die," he whispered. Gleams of sunlight low down slanting on the palm leaves, turning them to gold, gave him the idea that the time was near sunset. In the corner of the hut stood ollas and bags which had not been there before, and on the ground lay an Indian blanket. A shadow crossed the sunlit gleams. An Indian girl entered. She had a very dark skin and straight hair that was black as night. Upon seeing Adam staring at her wide-open eyes, she uttered a cry and ran out. A hubbub of low voices sounded outside the shack. Then a tall figure entered it. It was that of an Indian dressed in the ragged clothes of a white man. He was old, his dark bronze face like a hard, wrinkled mask. "How?" he asked gruffly as he bent over Adam. He had piercing black eyes. All right, good," replied Adam, trying to smile. He sensed kindliness in this old Indian. "White boy want dig gold. Get lost. No grub. Heap sick belly?" queried the Indian, putting a hand on Adam's flat abdomen. "Yes, you bet," replied Adam. "Ha! Me Charlie Jim, heap big medicine man. Me fix him. Snake bite no hurt. White boy sick bad, no heap grub, long time." "All right, Charlie," replied Adam. "Ha!" Evidently this exclamation was Charlie Jim's expression for good. He arose and backed away to the opening that appeared blocked by dark-skinned, black-haired Indians. Then he pointed at one of them. Adam saw that he indicated the girl who had first come to him. She appeared very shy, and Adam gathered the impression that she'd been the one who had saved him. "Charlie Jim, who found me? Who saved me from that rattlesnake?" The old Indian understood Adam well enough. He grinned and pointed at the young girl and pronounced a name that sounded to Adam like Uia. "When? How long ago? How many days?" asked Adam. Charlie Jim held up 3 fingers, and with that he waved the other Indians from the opening and went out himself. Adam was left to the bewildered thoughts of a tired and hazy mind. He had no strength in all, and the brief interview with its excitement and exercise of voice brought him near the verge of unconsciousness. He wavered amid the dim shadows of ideas and thoughts, and when that condition passed, he awoke dull, leaden pain in his head, and his body felt like an empty sack, 2 sides of which were pasted together flat. The sunlit gleams vanished, and the shades of evening made gloom around him. He smelled fragrant wood smoke and some other odor, long unfamiliar, that brought a watery flow to his mouth and a prickling as of many needles. Then in the semi-darkness, one of the Indians entered and knelt beside him. Adam distinguished the face of the girl, Oiya. She covered him with a blanket. Very gently she lifted his head and moved her body so that it would support him. The lifting hurt Adam. He seemed to reel and sway, and a blackness covered his sight. The girl held him and put something warm and wet between his lips. She was trying to feed him with a stick or a wooden spoon. The act of swallowing made his throat feel as if it was sore. What a slow process. Adam rather repelled than assisted his nurse, but his antagonism was purely physical and involuntary. Whatever the food was, it had no taste to him. The heat of it, however, and the soft, wet sensation grew pleasant. He realized when hunger awakened again in him, for it, like a shot, it went through his vitals. Then the girl laid him back, spread the blanket high, and left him. The strange sensation of fullness, of movement inside Adam's breast occupied his mind until drowsiness overcame him. Another day awakened Adam to the torture of a reviving hunger and its gnawing pains, so severe that life seemed unwelcome. The hours were weary and endless, but next day was not so severe. And thereafter, gradually, he grew better and was on the road to a slow recovery. The Indians that had befriended Adam were of a family belonging to the Cohiya tribe. Charlie Jim appeared to be a chief of some degree, friendly toward the whites and nomadic in spirit as he wandered from oasis to oasis. He knew Dismukes and told Adam that the prospector he had found gold up this canyon. Charlie Jim's family consisted of several squaws, some young men, 2 girls, of whom Oiya was the younger, and a troop of children, wild as desert rats. Adam learned from Charlie Jim that the head of this canyon contained a thicket of mesquite trees, the beans of which the Indians prized as food. Also, there were abundant willows and arrowweeds with which wood the Indians constructed their huge, round basket granaries. The women of the family pounded the mesquite beans into meal or flour, which was dampened and put away for use. Good grass and water in this remote canyon were further reasons why Charlie Jim frequented it, but he did not appear to be a poor Indian, for he had good horses and drove burros, pack outfits that were a mixture of Indian and prospector styles, and numerous tools, utensils, and accoutrements that had been purchased at some freighting post. Adam was so long weak and dependent upon Oiya that when he did grow strong enough to help himself, the Indian girl's habit of waiting upon him and caring for him was hard to break. She seemed to take it for granted that she was to go on looking after him, and the fineness and sensitiveness of her, with the strong sense of her delight in serving him, made it impossible for Adam to offend her. She was shy and reserved, seldom spoke, and always maintained before him a simplicity, almost a humility, as of servant to master. With acquaintance, too, the still, dark, and passive face of her had become attractive to look at, especially her large, black, inscrutable eyes, soft as desert midnight. They watched Adam at times when she imagined he was unaware of her scrutiny, and the light of them pleased Adam and perturbed him also, reminding him of what an old aunt had told him once. "Adam, my boy, women will always love you." The prophecy had not been fulfilled, Adam reflected with sadness. In Oiya's case, he concluded his fancies were groundless. Still, he had to talk to somebody or grow into a desert habit of silence, and so he began to teach Oiya his language and to learn hers. The girl was quick to learn and could twist her tongue round his words better than he could round hers. Moreover, she learned quickly anything he cared to teach her, and naturally, even in the desert, there were customs into which Adam preferred to introduce something of the white man's ways. Indians were slovenly and dirty, and Adam changed this in Oya's case. The dusky desert maiden had little instinctive vanities that contact with him developed. One day, when the summer was waning and Adam was getting about on his feet, still a gaunt and stalking shadow of his former self, but gaining faster, the old Indian chief said, "White man heap strong. Ride. Go away soon?" "No, Charlie Jim, I want to stay here," replied Adam. "Ha!" replied the Indian, nodding. "Me live here. Work with Indian. White man no home, no people. He like Indian. He work, hunt, meat for Indian." "Heap sheep," replied Charlie Jim with a slow, expressive wave of his hand toward the mountain peaks. "Charlie Jim, take white man's money. Send to freight post for gun, shells, clothes, flour, bacon, many things. White man need? Ha!" The chief held up 4 fingers and pointed west, indicating what Adam had gathered was 4 days' ride to a freighting post. "Charlie Jim no tell white men about me?" The Indian took the money with grave comprehension and also shook the hand Adam offered. The Indian boys who rode away to the freighting post on the river were 2 weeks in returning. To celebrate the return of the boys, Adam suggested a feast and that he would bake the bread and cook the bacon. Oya took as by right the seat of honor next to Adam, and her habitual shyness did not inhibit a rather hearty appetite. On this occasion, Adam finally got the wild little half-naked dusky children to come to him. They could not resist sweets. A shining new rifle, a Winchester .44, was the cynosure of all eyes in that Indian encampment. When Adam took it out to practice, the whole family crowded around to watch with intense interest of primitive people who marveled at the white man's weapon. Only the little children ran from the sharp report of the rifle, and they soon lost their fear. Whenever Adam made a good shot, it was Oya who showed pride where the others indicated only their wonder. Thus the days of simplicity slipped by, every one of which now added to Adam's fast return in strength. Flour and bacon quickly built up his reduced weight, and as for rice and dried fruits, they were so delicious to Adam that he feared it would not be a great while before he must needs send for more. He remembered the advice of Dismukes and the value of his money. The hot summer became a season of the past. The withering winds ceased to blow. In the early autumn days, Adam began his hunting. Charlie Jim led the way, keeping behind a fringe of mesquite, out to a gray expanse of desert, billowy and beautiful in the ruddy sunlight. They crawled through sage to the height of a low ridge, and from here the chief espied game. He pointed down a long gray slope, but Adam could see only a monotonous beauty spotted by large tufts of sage, and here and there a cactus. Then the Indian took Adam's sombrero and the 2 scarves he had, one red and one blue, and tied them around the hat, which he elevated upon a stick. After that he bent his falcon gaze on the slope. Adam likewise gazed with infinite curiosity, thrill, and expectation. "Ha!" grunted Charlie Jim presently, and his sinewy dark hand clutched at him. Far down, vague gray spots seemed to move. Adam strained his eyes. It seemed a long time till they approached close enough to distinguish their species. "Antelope, by Jiminy!" ejaculated Adam in excitement. "Heap, Jiminy, you bet," responded Charlie Jim. Adam was experiencing that thrill to his utmost, and also other sensations of wonder and amaze. Was it possible these wild-looking desert creatures were actually so curious about the brightly decked sombrero that they could not resist approaching it to see what it was? There they came, sleek, tawny gray, alert, deer-like animals, with fine pointed heads, long ears, and white rumps. The bold leader never stopped at all, but some of his followers hesitated to trot to and fro and then come on. How graceful they were, how suggestive of speed and wildness. Adam's finger itched to shoot off the gun and scare them to safety. "Fine hunter I am," he muttered. "This is murder. Why on earth does a man have to eat meat?" The Indian beside him was all keen and strung with his instincts, and perhaps they were truer to the needs of a human life. Soon, however, all of Adam's sensations were blended in a thrilling warmth of excitement. The antelope were already within range, and had it not been for Charlie Jim's warning hand, Adam would not have been able to resist the temptation to fire. Perhaps he would have missed then, for he certainly shook in every muscle as a man with the ague. Adam forced himself to get the better of this spell of nerves. "Heap soon," whispered Charlie Jim, relaxing the pressure of his hand on Adam. The leader approached to within 50 feet, with several other antelope close behind. When the Indian whistled, like statues they became. Then Adam fired. The leader fell, and also one of those behind him. The others flashed into gray, speeding shapes with rumps darting white, and Adam could only stare in admiring wonder at their incomparable swiftness. "Ha!" ejaculated the chief in admiration. "White man heap, hunter, one shoot, 2 bucks. Am I like eagle?" Thus did a lucky shot by Adam, killing 2 antelope when he aimed at only one, initiate him into his hunting on the desert and win for him the Indian sobriquet of Eagle. End of Chapter 11, Part 1.